الرحمن الرحيم. السادة الحضور، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. نشكر لكم حضوركم اليوم الأخير للاجتماع الخامس للشراكة العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. بداية أنبه كافة الحضور للاستماع إلى الترجمة باللغة الإنجليزية في النصف ساعة الأولية من هذا الويبينار. الرجاء استخدام القناة التي عليها اللغة الألمانية German language فقط للنصف ساعة الأولانية، ومن ثم ننتقل إلى الإنجليش channel القناة الإنجليزية للاستماع إلى الترجمة. واسمحوا لي أن أعطي الكلمة الآن للسيد سجيت مهانتي، رئيس مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، فليتفضل.
Thank you, Rania. So Excellencies, colleagues, very good morning, very good afternoon to all of you. A very warm welcome to all colleagues on the final day of this fifth Arab Partnership meeting for disaster risk reduction. And a special warm welcome to our director, Ricardo Mena from Geneva, and also Excellency Ambassador Zahira Wahabi, who also joined us on the first day and from the League of Arab States. So welcome, colleagues. So colleagues, today we are on the fifth day of the Arab Partnership meeting, where we are bringing together all the Arab governments, the stakeholders, UN partner agencies, all of them, together. This comes after a successful 4-day meeting from 2nd and to the 5th November, where the first day we targeted the National Sendai focal points to update on their progress in implementation of the prioritized action plan of 2018-2020 of the Arab strategy, as well as in general on the implementation of Sendai framework. And the second day, we focused on the voluntary stakeholder groups of the region with the aim of strengthening the stakeholder engagement. And the third day was devoted to the UN regional offices to share their updates on supporting the region in implementation of the Sendai framework. The fourth day was in commemoration of the World Tsunami Awareness Day and included the regional launch of the Making Cities Resilient 2030 program. So, colleagues, firstly, I would like to commend you for the tremendous efforts of the governments to achieve the Sendai framework. That was really evident from the number of countries that have already developed and endorsed their national strategies. We have 13 countries with either a draft or an endorsed national DRR strategy, and 4 national strategies are under development. In addition, we were also informed about the efforts exerted by the governments on establishing disaster loss database, the critical number of countries reporting on the Sendai monitor, and this is in spite of the difficult times we are witnessing, we are all in fact facing right now. We also had the opportunity to discuss the need for integrating biological hazards in regional, national, and local DRR strategies, and the way forward on renewing the regional prioritized action plan for 2021-2024, which is in preparation of the 5th Arab Regional Platform for DRR. Furthermore, I am pleased to see that stakeholder groups in the region have come so far since they presented their commitment in the last Africa Arab Regional Platform in Tunis in 2018. We heard about the remarkable efforts and progress made in implementing their voluntary action statements, again, despite the challenges of COVID-19 pandemic. I would also like to specifically thank all the UN agencies that have worked on integrating and mainstreaming disaster risk reduction and recognize their vital role in strengthening resilience in the region. It was evident that there are a number of joint initiatives by UN agencies on disaster risk reduction, and there is a tremendous potential we found for collaborative efforts among the agencies in the region. So today we will hear from colleagues on the outcome of the discussions with governments, with stakeholders, and UN agencies reflecting on the past 3 days. We will take the opportunity of this gathering today to launch the first national level private sector alliance in the Arab region in the UAE, which is the Arise UAE initiative. We will also present and consult with you on the 5th Arab Regional Platform for DRR preparation. So as you know, that we are focused on addressing the challenges and finding solutions to effectively implement the Sendai framework together with you through this partnership forum. We have come a long way in this partnership forum. I think it has now become a sort of a very stable and the biggest forum for partnership and collaboration in DRR. It is, from the last few days of conversation, it is really evident that there are many positive UN stakeholder groups and member states initiatives to build on, so we can achieve this common goal of having an all of society approach in disaster risk reduction. I think today we are going to focus on the outcome and how we are going to move forward from here. And with that, I thank everyone who participated in the last 4 days, and also today. And I look forward to hearing, the outcomes from the meeting and how we move forward. So I would stop there. Again, thank you very much, colleagues, for participating. And I will now would like to invite our director, Ricardo Mena, to provide his opening remarks and set the scene for today's discussion. Ricardo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sujit, and I'm really pleased to be taking part in this session today. So distinguished participant, partners, and UN colleagues, I understand and I have heard from Sujit that this has been a very important forum for sharing and learning about the Arab region's efforts in accelerating the implementation of Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction and the Arab strategy for DRR 2030 with its program of work and prioritized action plans. So I'm really pleased and welcome you all to this final session of the 5th Arab Partnership meeting for disaster risk reduction. As we all know, the Sendai framework for disaster risk reduction expanded the scope of hazards to comprise both natural and man-made hazards, as well as the related biological, technological, and environmental hazards and risks. The concept of risk being the function of hazard and exposure, vulnerability, and coping capacity has become ever more complex. It is becoming clearer and clearer that we must view risk through a systemic lens, given the interplay between risk drivers such as poverty, climate change, and the reality that one disaster can trigger another. The COVID-19 pandemic that we are going through, and I send you my regards from almost lockdown Geneva, has made this very obvious. An international public health emergency has become a major socioeconomic crisis, which could cost the global economy 31 trillion and set back efforts to eradicate poverty and achieve other sustainable development goals, notably zero hunger and improved access to education and healthcare. It is becoming more and more crucial to address risk through a whole of government and all of society approach, recognizing that the responsibility for managing disaster risk is not the sole province of governments, but must be shared with all DRR stakeholders. COVID-19, as I was saying, is an unprecedented disaster. It has indeed affected every single aspect of our social lives and economy. But we can also see the recovery phase as an opportunity to boost international cooperation and to build back better in a greener and more sustainable way with greater investment in disaster risk reduction. Remember that the scope of the Sendai framework invites governments to prevent the creation of new and reduce existing risk. In this context, the Arab DRR Partnership Forum is an important platform with a great responsibility to address the increasing demand for DRR efforts in this region. I would like to stress that implementing the Sendai framework requires an adequate enabling environment for DRR, which can only be achieved through strengthened disaster risk governance at regional, national, and local levels, something we emphasized last month when celebrating the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. This includes ensuring that the Arab Partnership meeting continues to be a strong forum for rallying partners, including government, stakeholders, partners, and the UN family. A key objective must be an increase in actionable national and local strategies for disaster risk reduction by the end of this year. Target E of the Sendai framework. This is the first target to come to a deadline and absolutely fundamental for being able to implement the strategies throughout the decade of action, which we are already in until 2030. So strengthening disaster risk governance also requires national and local frameworks in terms of regulations and public policies, which reduce exposure and vulnerability and ultimately lead to a reduction in disaster losses, and also avoid the creation of new risk. I would also like to emphasize the importance of one governance aspect that UNDRR, particularly in the Regional Office for Arab States, has been advocating for. That is the establishment of and institutionalization of national multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder platforms that can serve as catalysts for coordinating and guiding the implementation of national and local DRR strategies. To address the systemic nature of disaster risk, it is important to ensure coherence between DRR, climate action, and efforts to achieve the Sustainable Development Goals. A coherence initiative has been launched by our office, the UN Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, globally and regionally to work towards climate and disaster risk-informed sustainable development, with its pilot phase targeting least developed countries and small island developing states. On this occasion, I would like to commend all partners' efforts in working closely together as per their mandates and comparative advantages on the development of the regional assessment report on disaster risk reduction for the Arab region. This report had been viewed as an ambitious endeavor at the time of its initiation by UNDRR, Regional Office for Arab States, in view of the lack of adequate DRR research, disaggregated data, and evidence available in the region. It seeks to make the business case for DRR in coherence with the aims of the Paris Agreement and the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, and demonstrate the value of national disaster loss databases to inform and guide risk-informed investment and policymaking. It has been an ambitious undertaking, but thanks to the strong will and commitment of all stakeholders present here today, the regional assessment report is becoming a reality, and I look forward to its finalization and launch in 2021. I also take this opportunity to commend the efforts of regional stakeholder groups in organizing themselves and delivering voluntary commitments at the Africa-Arab Platform on DRR held in Tunis in October 2018. I have followed with great interest the proceedings and outcomes of the stakeholders' deliberation a few days ago, and which will be presented later today. The active engagement of the 7 Arab stakeholder groups in this forum and in supporting governments in implementing the Arab strategy for DRR and Sendai framework is really exemplary. I'm also very pleased to know of the recent establishment of the UAE Arise private sector network. I look forward to the presentations on this network in this meeting today and would encourage more efforts in establishing national Arise networks in this region to strengthen the role of the private sector in disaster risk reduction. Finally, I would like to thank all the partners here today for their dedication to advancing DRR across the region. despite the challenges posed by present circumstances. I wish you a very fruitful conclusion to this meeting, and I look forward to the day when we can all meet in person once again. Thank you very much for your attention, and back to you, Sujit.
Thank you very much, Ricardo, for really eloquently, putting forth and conveying the importance of the new nature of risk, or the complexity and systemic nature of risk, as well as to invest really more on disaster risk reduction, as well as in institutional capacity of countries. Thank you again, Ricardo, for your opening remarks. Now, I would like to move on to our next speaker, Excellency Ambassador Zahira Wahabi from the League of Arab States, who has been collaborating with us from quite a number of years now. And I would now request Ambassador Zahira Wahabi to deliver her opening remarks. Ambassador Zahira.
Thank you very much, Sujit, and welcome, Ricardo, and congratulations for the assumption of this important within the UNDR. And we have known you for a long time before and worked together. So it was our pleasure to see you here today with us. I will switch to speaking into Arabic. So يشرفني اليوم أن أخاطبكم باسم جامعة الدول العربية التي تدعم الحد من مخاطر الكوارث من خلال رؤيتها وتوجهها نحو تحقيق الأمن الإنساني للشعب العربي. وكما تعلمون قد اهتمت الجامعة بالحد من مخاطر الكوارث على المستوى العربي تمشيا مع أهدافها ودورها كمنظمة عربية إقليمية تساهم في تنفيذ الأطر الإقليمية والدولية. وقد قمنا عليه بإدراج الحد من مخاطر الكوارث في السياسات العربية الخاصة بالتنمية المستدامة وتغير المناخ، وفي إدماج الحد من المخاطر الكوارث في المجالس الوزارية المتخصصة في الجامعة العربية. والهدف كان هو تعزيز القدرة على مجابهة الكوارث من خلال الحد من المخاطر وقابلية التضرر. ولذلك قمنا بدعم كافة الدول العربية لوضع ورصد الاستراتيجيات الوطنية من الحد من مخاطر الكوارث. والآن أصبح لدينا 13 دولة عربية لديها استراتيجيات وطنية معتمدة، و3 دول قاموا بإعداد الاستراتيجيات بالفعل وهي تحت الاعتماد، وبقية الدول العربية بصدد الانتهاء من وضع هذه الاستراتيجيات. وهنا لابد من الإشارة إلى أن عدد من الدول العربية ما زالت تحتاج إلى الدعم الفني والتقني لشيئين. الشيء الأول هو إعداد الاستراتيجيات الوطنية لحد مخاطر الكوارث. الشيء الثاني هو وضع آلية وطنية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث تقوم بالتنسيق لكافة العناصر المتعلقة بالحد من مخاطر الكوارث في مكان مركزي يمكنها من الرصد الكوارث المختلفة والتقرير بشأنها وإنشاء داتابيز يعني للكوارث الموجودة فيها. حقيقة لقد تابعنا عمل مكتب الأمم المتحدة العربي لحد من مخاطر الكوارث، فقد عمل مع مجموعات من الدول العربية من خلال أنشطة تدريبية على المستوى الوطني والمحلي، واستهدف بعض العاملين في الحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وهو أمر تستفيد منه جامعة الدول العربية في الاطلاع بدورها الإقليمي لدعم وتنفيذ برنامج عمل الاستراتيجية العربية لحد من مخاطر الكوارث 2030 في المنطقة. يتزامن اجتماعنا هذا الخامس للشراكة مع أحد الكوارث الغير مسبوقة، وهي اجتياح فيروس كورونا لكافة دول العالم دون التفرقة بين هذه الدول، وتسبب في العديد من الوفيات والإصابات بالإضافة إلى تداعياته الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، بل ما زال يهدد اليوم الجنس البشري، وهو ما يؤكد أهمية وضرورة الحوكمة الجيدة ووضع خطط محكمة لإدارة الكوارث. والهدف الأساسي من هذه الخطط هو زيادة الأرواح التي يتم إنقاذها وتقليل عدد المتضررين والحد من الخسائر الاقتصادية. فإذا قرنت هذه الجائحة وتزامنت مع سلسلة من حالات الطوارئ المناخية التي يشهدها كوكب الأرض اليوم، وخاصة في المنطقة العربية يجعل وجود رؤية وخطط واضحة ومؤسسات مختصة وممكنة للحد من تعمل بناء علمية أمر ليس مطلوب فحسب بل أمر ضروري وحتمي. ومن هذا المنطلق فقد ناقش هذا الاجتماع في بدايته مسألة اعتماد وثيقة إضافية للاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث تعنى بالكوارث البيولوجية. والجامعة العربية تؤيد هذا الطرح وتستمعنا إلى كافة الدول وإلى آرائها حوله، ولذلك نرى أن الآن الخبير الذي عينه المكتب لديه معلومات كافية للبدء في إعداد هذه الوثيقة حتى ننظر في الكيفية التي سنسير بها قدما إلى الأمام. الشيء الثاني الذي ناقشناه هو وضع البرنامج التنفيذي للسنتين القادمتين، وهنا نؤكد على أهمية رصد ما تم تنفيذه من البرنامج الأول والبناء على ما تم لاستكمال المسيرة. أتمنى لهذا الاجتماع النجاح وأن نصل به إلى الغايات المطلوبة، و يعني أؤكد أن الجامعة العربية تسعى هي بالتنسيق بين مجالسها الوزارية العربية والمنظمات العربية المتخصصة وبقية شركائها الإقليميين لإقامة ترابط أو نكسس بين تغير المناخ والكوارث والهجرة والنزوح والنزاع والأمن البشري والأمن الغذائي والمائي، وهي المشاكل التي تميز المنطقة العربية دون المناطق الأخرى. والغرض هو تمهيد الطريق لضمان اتساق السيادات والتعامل تغير الكوارث وإجراءات التنمية المستدامة على جميع المستويات. ونأمل أن يستمر تعاوننا مع الاتحاد الأفريقي ومجلس التعاون الخليجي واتحاد المغرب العربي، لجنة الأمم المتحدة الاقتصادية النهاية الغربية، المركز العربي لقائم أخطار الزلزال، وعدد مؤسسات التمويل العربية للحفاظ على الزلزال المستمر، بالتالي ضمان التنفيذ المتكامل والمتماسك للبرامج التي يتم إقرارها في جميع أنحاء المنطقة العربية. وهنا أؤكد على أهمية تعزيز قدرة الآلية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وذلك حيث أنها هي الآلية الأساسية الحكومية التي تحظى بعضوية كافة أصحاب المصلحة، هي الآلية الأساسية لمتابعة وتنسيق العمل العربي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. شكرا سيد شوجيت، ونتمنى لكم النجاح في هذا الاجتماع.
Thank you, Excellency Ambassador Zahira, for your remarks. And indeed, I take this opportunity to thank the League of Arab States for its continuous engagement with the UNDRR regional office, as well as with all countries and other regional organizations. Our joint effort in the the regional Arab strategy and its work program and the prioritized action plan, I think that has been driving the whole DRR work in the region. And indeed, as we move forward with our new collaboration on integration of biological hazards, within the Arab strategy, I think this is again is going to immensely benefit all the countries in terms of guidance to integrate biological hazards. So again, thank you very much, Excellency Ambassador Zahira, for your presence and for your continuous engagement. So colleagues, so with this, we move to our next segment of today's session, which is on private sector engagement. So as I think we have been discussing about the importance of engagement of stakeholders, and it always comes out very prominently the importance of engaging private sector. In this region, I think for the first time, UAE took the lead in having a private sector alliance with really a set of very committed chief executive officers from a number of private sector organizations. And this was indeed, I mean, for all of us in the region, it's really a proud moment to say that this first Arab Private Sector Alliance, which is under the UN DRR initiative of ARISE, has really come up to a stage where it has a very succinct and very concrete work plan with very strong commitment from our private sector colleagues. And we would like to really launch this initiative today. Although we started back in September with all the private sector colleagues, it was really a remarkable moment, I must say, when we were so excited about the kind of activities we were envisaging in the ARISE UAE network. So without any further delay, I would like to hand it over to the chair, co-chair, and the vice chair of the ARISE who are present here today in this meeting to give you the brief on how ARISE UAE is moving forward and what's the way forward for the private sector engagement in this region. So colleagues, I would like to now invite Dr. Mahmoud Al-Burai, who is the chair of the ARISE UAE. Dr. Mahmoud, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, my dear friend Sujit, and thank you, Ricardo. And thanks also to Ms. Wahbi. It's great to see that the Arab region has a plan, a strategy.
Dr. Mahmoud, we can't hear you.
Really?
Or is it only me?
I can hear him.
Yeah, I can hear it as well.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So can you hear me now, Sujit?
Change the channel of translation, that's it.
No.
So maybe if you transfer to French, you can hear me. Can you hear me?
No,
I
can't.
I'm really sorry. So it's only you or everyone?
No, I believe we are all able to hear you.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
I'm on the German channel.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah, maybe I go on and maybe our friend Sujit has some time to fix the...
Mahmoud, I think
great.
The problem from... Sorry.
Yeah, thank you so much. And it's a really great pleasure and honor to be part of this great work. We are in a region that needs so much support when it comes to resilience and building future. We're in a region that has all kinds of challenges, economic, social, political, environment. But also we're looking at this as an opportunity to build institutions and to build the capacity. Going back to SDGs number 17, it's about partnership, and we really firmly believe that this is a great opportunity where the private sector, public sector, and people come together and join forces to do a better future for this region. The Secretary General of the UN said everything we do during and after crisis of COVID-19 must be with a strong focus on building more equal, inclusive, and sustainable economies and societies that are more resilient in the face of pandemics, climate change, and many other global challenges we're facing today. We totally and we firmly believe that the private sector has a big role to play. And in Dubai and the United Arab Emirates, our vision has been always about building sustainability and building smarter future for our generations and generations to come. There's been so much focus on government, and government has been leading, but we really believe that government alone cannot make it. It has to be private sector also should be involved, and this is why we're very glad to launch today officially the first, and hopefully it's not the last. We're looking forward for another ARISE network in different Arab countries. So this is a private sector-led initiative, as Mr. Sujit said, very dedicated CEOs working with a work plan, committed to help with Dubai resilience strategy, with the UAE resilience strategy, committed also to help with now Dubai has proposed to be the first resilience hub in the region. And this is a great opportunity for us as a network to build relationship and take this opportunity to forge relationship with other parts of the Arab region. We're happy in the UAE to lead the private sector contribution to disaster risk reduction by launching the first ARISE in this region, focusing on Sendai process goals and priorities in consistent and equitable manner that produces concrete impacts. Our objectives as a UAE network is linked to the country objectives on resilience, because we believe that having a resilient business is important for resilient society. So COVID-19 has pushed us to think this way, and it's going definitely to accelerate business integration in public policies, in sustainability, and also recovery plans. So we are going to definitely, we're shaking hands and we're building a strong relationship with the government here to make sure that we work together to achieve the objectives. And part of it is yes, resilience, and part of it is sustainability, but also it has some economic consideration. We're very happy to work with you and the DRR office in Cairo. They've been of a great support. We have a plan to work on. We're focusing on SMEs. We're focusing on also, we're having a committee on resilient infrastructure, on resilient buildings. And we have a plan that we are going to execute in the coming few months. And hopefully we have everyone come and visit us in the UAE next year in Expo 2020, where a big event on resilience will be happening. So I will leave it now to my friend Ahmed, who will take you, the co-chair, to take you through other areas of the focus of the UAE Arise. But thank you, Sujit, thank you, Ricardo, and thank you, Ms. Wahbi, for being with us today. It's a great moment where we can say, yes, today we launched it officially, but for us, the work started 2 months ago. Committed young people, good diverse group, and looking forward to be part of this process. Thank you so much.
Hello, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here with all of you. Today, it's a big announcement about Arise UAE. We are working as a team with regional office and also with the global Arise to establish this committee, or the first UAE, the first Arab state UAE Arise UAE. I will now share with you our plan for 2020-2021. And we already achieved some of our plan, and we are looking to achieve more in in this year and next year as well. This is our colleague from all of UAE, the chair, co-chair, the vice chair, Dr. Tariq, and the remaining colleagues from different industries or from different point of view for resilience. We are planning for 2020 and 21 to tackle 5 areas. First one, we are looking to establish or to publication of best practice in business resilience, risk management, and also for scorecards for asset management. Second, we will working together for a huge program for SMEs, for small medium enterprise, to guide them to be more resilient to face the COVID-19 and any other risks may happen in the future. Number 3, we will working for a business resilience awareness campaign in cooperation with different other entities in UAE and authorities. Also, we already starting working for disaster resilience scorecard for industry and commercial buildings, and we are looking to have around 25 to 20 to 29 buildings during this year, and maybe around the hundreds of buildings for next year to be following the building resilience scorecard that is already issued by UN DRR in early of this year. Number 5, the initiative number 5, we will working on disaster resilience scorecard for cities' public health system resilience. This is the focus five initiatives, but we have another initiative we already looking to working on it in 2021. Like we are planning to establish a first award for awards for business resilience and disaster risk reduction. Also, we are looking to establish a business resilience and disaster risk reduction conference. We have a very good planning for the future, and looking to working with all Arab states countries to not only to build a UAE resilient, but to build Arab state resilience as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ahmad. This again, I think is very exciting work plan. I know that there are much more to it. There is a lot of communication and advocacy activities the Arise is planning. But again, I mean, I think it's always exciting to hear from the group about their ambitious plan. So with that, let me now move on to Dr. Tariq Ahmad Nizami, who is the vice chair of the Arise UAE. But at the same time, I think he also is part of a tremendous network of CEOs, the CEO Clubs network, which has really a big potential of advocacy in the business world. So Dr. Tariq Nizami, now I hand it over to you.
Well, Bismillah ar-Rahman Rahim, and good afternoon, everyone. I think today we have launched officially the first Arab, in the launch of first Arab private sector alliance for disaster resilient society, Arise UAE, and I think we are very excited to be a part of it, and we are very excited to work in this coming year. As we all know, the world is risk landscape rapidly changing. Risk has progressively growing. New interaction between environmental, economic, technological, and biological risk. So I think having a UAE chapter here, I think is definitely gonna help us a lot. And business themselves, as you know, they face several threats from both man-made and natural disasters. And I think in private sector activities is very vital for national and regional economies, and not only as a provider of a product and services, but enhancing and in the private sector is very important. As we all know, the private sector resilience and its resilient practices are linked to community, and community practices it's very important to observe the effect of the disaster. This is especially important and relevant for us in Arise UAE. Arise UAE is a network, as you know, is a new, but we will bring the solutions for micro, small, medium enterprises through our strong engagement we plan in coming years and this year, and grow our network by invite professional companies to join us. As you mentioned, Mr. Sujit, I am a part of CEO and founder of CEO Club Network Worldwide. We have thousands of companies all over the world, and especially in UAE, we have more than 1,000 companies a part of our network, and we are selecting and inviting those professionals and those things that could be valuable for us here in Arise UAE. And as you know, that Arise UAE will give guidance to private sectors to prevent their moves, the focus from managing disaster events and their impacts to managing disaster risk by reducing existing risk and preventing the creation of new risk. As we all know, we're going through a major disaster the whole world is going through at this time. Today, I'd like to invite all the business leaders for action and commitment in line with the Arise UAE under the UN DRR Regional Office of Arab States. Our aim is to increase the outreach to business leaders, highlighting the role of the private sector in disaster risk reduction, with a focus on the strong contribution that can be made by private business across the sector. We in Arise UAE will have a special campaign for awareness, influence, share knowledge, implement projects and activities, and achieving the targets of Sendai framework. We would like the SMEs, especially the investment insurance, to join Arise UAE network. And we are requesting to just send us the email in Arise UAE.org email ID, and then we will send the complete information to all our people who request us, and then we will definitely do our due diligence and the process. But the ARISE members, we agree that it's combining the intellectual capital assets for private sector with the public sector and academia and stakeholder knowledge, outreach, resources, solutions such as communication policy. So we need all type of professionals to be a part of this ARISE UAE to aim to contribute for the target of Sendai framework for 2030. We as the ARISE UAE with the strong board members from all industries are very committed and very excited to play a very key role in DRR and all their initiatives that they have. And in ARISE UAE, we also have multiple focus committees like Mr. Ahmed talked about, and Mr. Dr. Burai also, that we made smaller groups to assist but is only for our network members. So we are encouraging people to come and join us first, and then we will see how they can join our different committees and who give a valuable outcome to the working by side with the other professionals. ARISE UAE need definitely private sector to sustain business, to reduce risk, better world for all of us where we live. And I think we all have to contribute our responsibility and contribute our knowledge and share the knowledge with all of us and being part of it. And I think, we in ARISE UAE definitely, we are new, but I think in coming months, we'll see how we're growing it. We have very big plan for a lot of events. We will be hosting it, focusing on different things, on the guidelines of UNDRR, and we will host and bring a lot of professional people to come forward and contribute. And so I like to thank you and everybody that giving me the opportunity to speak in this fifth Arab Partnership meeting for disaster risk reduction. We as the ARISE UAE, on behalf of my chairman, the co-chair, and myself and the whole board, I like to thank the UNDRR that for giving us the opportunity in UAE, and please, we will share and we will take a full responsibility according to all the DRR programs, UNDRR programs in coming months. Again, I request the private sector to come forward and join ARISE UAE and network. Now we need everybody's valuable input and support for better world for all of us. In last, I just want to say, just be safe wherever you are and always be healthy and happy. But thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to have ARISE UAE. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Dr. Tariq, and thank you also to Dr. Mahmood and Ahmad for sharing all the information on the UAE ARISE. And let me also take this opportunity of joining Dr. Tariq in really conveying the call for expanding the network, not only in UAE ARISE, but also I urge all our partners and governments to start really thinking about engaging, private sector in their work. This is the UAE ARISE is really, indeed a great experience we had with all the team members of UAE ARISE, and we look forward for a really successful private sector engagement with such a great team. So thank you very much, colleague, again. And officially, I can say today is the launch of the UAE ARISE, and this is the beginning of UAE ARISE, but we look forward to have more and more national chapters and a regional private sector engagement in the region. So with that, again, thank you very much. And we now move to our discussion on the reflections from the past days of discussion with government stakeholders and UN agencies. We look at what has been discussed, what's the way forward, and what's the outcome of those days to share with all of you. And we will have the opportunity of discussing for a few minutes on, what is your take on moving forward. So with that, let me now invite for a reflection on the first day of the meeting, where all governments, the Sendai focal points participated. I would like to now invite Zahi, our colleague from Lebanon, from the government of Lebanon, Zahi Shaheen, to give us a report back from the first day. Zahid, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Sujit, and good morning, everyone. It's always a pleasure, and especially with the level of know-how, expertise, and experience shared, and the future plans, we know that we're on the right track with the UNDRR. So that's always the positivity behind those meetings and the work done all year through. I'm gonna share my screen with you for a small presentation. I'm gonna be as brief as possible. So I'm going to speak in Arabic here. بالاجتماع الخامس للشراكة العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث بالتقدم المحرز بالتنفيذ إطار سنداي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث بالمنطقة العربية. الخطة العمل ذات الأولوية كانت لل 2018-2020 للاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث 2030. تستند الخطة العمل 2018-2020 إلى برنامج العمل الخاص بالاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وتعطي الأولوية لإجراء المطلوب على المستوى الإقليمي والوطني والمحلي للعامين 18-20. تقوم هذه الخطة على أسس توصيات والأولويات المشتركة بين الحكومات وأصحاب المصلحة من خلال مشاورات متعددة، بما في ذلك من خلال مشاورات آلية التنسيق العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. تم اعتماد الخطة كأحدى الوثائق المنبثقة عن المنتدى العربي الإفريقي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث المنعقد في تونس العاصمة في أكتوبر 2018. خطة العمل ذات الأولوية 2018-2020 إجراءات على المستوى الإقليمي. من الإجراءات كانت على المستوى الإقليمي تعزيز التعاون بين الحكومات وأصحاب المصلحة الآخرين. ما تم تنفيذه حتى تاريخه عقد اجتماعات شراكة عربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث بهدف تعزيز التعاون بين كافة أصحاب المصلحة المعنيين. أما على صعيد تعزيز التعاون والتنسيق الإقليمي حول الحد من مخاطر الكوارث من خلال تعزيز المنتدى الإقليمي العربي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، اللي صار هو المنتدى الإقليمي العربي الرابع للحد من مخاطر الكوارث كنتيجة لهذه الإجراء المتخذ القرار فيه. تعزيز أدوار آلية التنسيق الإقليمية للأمم المتحدة ومجموعة الأمم المتحدة الإنمائية، اتفاقية تعاون بين UNDRR والUNDP، اتفاقية تعاون بين UNDRR والUNFCCC. تشجيع الحكومات ومجموعات أصحاب المصلحة على تنفيذ ورصد الإبلاغ عن أعمالهم والتزامهم الطوعية في المنتدى الإقليمي باستمرار. هون كان هناك 7 مجموعات عربية لأصحاب المصلحة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وتم عقد عدة اجتماعات لمجموعات أصحاب المصلحة، وستم إبلاغ عن تقدم المحرز في تنفيذ البيانات الطوعية. على مستوى خطة العمل نفس الشيء على المستوى الوطني. هون إجراءات على المستوى الوطني والمحلي، تحقيق الغاية من إطار سنداي 13 استراتيجية وطنية و21 خطة مرونة محلية صارت it's in place now. قواعد بيانات متعددة الأخطار لأضرار وخسائر الناجمة عن الكوارث منذ عام 90 ولغاية عام 2016. 15 قاعدة وطنية لبيانات خسائر الكوارث أنجزت. منتديات وطنية متعددة الوزارات ومتعددة القطاعات ومتعددة أصحاب المصلحة. 14 منتدى أو آلية تنسيق وطنية. خلق بيئة تمكينية بما في ذلك من خلال تفعيل الإجراءات التشريعية والتنظيمية الملائمة لتمكين استثمارات القطاع الخاص في الحد من مخاطر الكوارث. تم إطلاق أول تحالف وطني للقطاع الخاص من أجل المجتمعات المقاومة للكوارث UAERIs. آخر مستجدات على المستوى المحلي، تم إطلاق برنامج جعل المدن بموضوع Making Cities Resilient. تم إطلاق البرنامج جعل المدن القادرة على الصمود 2030 مدن مرنة 2030 عالميا يوم 28 أكتوبر بالتعاون مع الشركاء استجابة لاحتياجات المدن واستنادا إلى الدروس المستفادة من الحملة السابقة لجعل المدن الأكثر قدرة على الصمود. الهدف النهائي لبرنامج جعل المدن قادرة على الصمود 2030 هو جعل المدن شاملة للجميع وآمنة وقادرة على الصمود ومستدامة بحلول عام 2030، والمساهمة بشكل مباشر في تحقيق الهدف 11 من أهداف التنمية المستدامة وغير ذلك من الأطر العالمية بما في ذلك إطار سنداي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث واتفاقية باريس والخطة الحضرية الجديدة. على مستوى التحديات في تنفيذ خطة عمل ذات الأولوية 18-20 هو عدم وجود موارد مالية كافية لتنفيذ نشاطات الحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وهذا التحدي الدائم. جائحة كورونا 2019 اللي معظم البلاد عم تعاني منها بالدرجة الأولى. احتساب الخسائر المالية الناتجة عن الكوارث ضمن قواعد بيانات خسائر الكوارث ونظام رصد إطار سنداي. نقص القدرات البشرية والتقنيات لدى بعض الدول النامية أو الجزرية الصغيرة. بموضوع مراحل إعداد خطة العمل ذات الأولوية 2021-2024 منبلش بمراجعة التقدم في تنفيذ خطة العمل ذات الأولوية 2018 إلى مشاورات مع جامعة الدول العربية، إلى مشاورات مع دول العربية من خلال المسح الأسسمنت، إعداد المسودة الأولى من خطة العمل ذات الأولوية، ثم تليها مشاورات مع الدول العربية خلال اجتماع الشراكة السادس، لتنتهي إلى إعداد النسخة النهائية وعرضها خلال المنتدى العربي الخامس. وثيقة إرشادية حول إدماج الأخطار البيولوجية في جهود الحد من مخاطر الكوارث في المنطقة العربية بالتعاون ما بين جامعة الدول العربية ومكتب DRR الإقليمي للدول العربية، بالتشاور مع نقاط اتصال سنداي وكل القطاعات المعنية في الدول العربية. مدة النشاط 4 أسابيع استشارات، يعني 4 أسابيع ليتم فيها الاستشارات مع الدول العربية حول خططهم الوطنية للحد من الأخطار البيولوجية، القطاع الصحي، الزراعي، البيطري والبيئي، ومناقشة التحديات والثغرات والمتطلبات والخبرة في التعامل معها. ثم يليها 3 أسابيع لدراسة الملفات المرسلة من الدول وتحليلها وإعداد تقرير بمجمل النتائج والتوصيات. ثم 2 أسبوع إرسال التقرير إلى جامعة الدول العربية وإلى الدول العربية لإبداء الرأي. تليها 2 أسبوع إعداد مسودة ملخص تفصيلي حول الأخطار البيولوجية ضمن الاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. وفي النهاية 2 أسبوع لإصدار النسخة النهائية. شكراً، وإذا في أي سؤال فلتتفضلوا.
Thank you, Zahid. Thank you very much for your update. I think it was really wonderful that you put it, in such a succinct manner in, briefly in this presentation. I know that the first day meeting was really, rich in its information, and we really witnessed the progress in the region from all countries. It was really good to hear all the new things happening in country, and also we heard about the challenges and then the bottlenecks in the progress. I think something you mentioned about the prioritized action plan and the integration of biological hazards. These 2 items were discussed on the first day with all the governments, and as a way forward, we agreed that the prioritized action plan, which was developed in 2018-2020, is coming to an end. So we need to have a sort of review of progress, as well as move forward with a new set of prioritized action for all the countries in preparation of the next regional platform meeting. We also discussed about the biological hazards integration. I think everybody agreed that there is a need for looking at how national and local strategies can really integrate the biological hazards aspect. Of course, there is a need, as I think Ricardo mentioned in the beginning, looking at all hazards, including natural, man-made, and also the biological hazards together, and have a very, sort of overview of all kind of hazards in our in the national strategies. So that will be the way forward for, I think, all of us, for all countries, all partners. We will have to now focus on, in the coming months, on starting a consultation process on the prioritized action plan and the preparation of the next regional platform. So with this, again, thank you, Zahi, for that brief to all colleagues. And let me move to our next speaker, who is going to provide us a brief on the second day on the stakeholder groups discussion. So it's my pleasure to invite Gada Ahmedin, who is representing also the CSO network, to present the brief on the second day. Gada, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for giving me the chance to present the outcomes of the second day of the stakeholder groups and voluntary action commitments. Let me first show you this picture, which depicts how Sendai is embedded in the major global agendas. The major agendas provide for a shared global vision towards sustainable development for all. And it's fundamental to seek coherence between its elements to avoid the duplication of efforts and maximize results. Coherence between the agendas.
Gada, sorry for the interference, but if you can move your slide to the next one.
Okay, so shall I move to the voluntary action commitments?
No, I said I'm not able to see the slide, the second slide. So if you can move to the second slide.
Well, this is the second slide, which is the Sendai framework all of society approach. Do you see it?
Okay, sorry, yeah, sure, please go ahead.
Do you all see it?
I think maybe your screen is frozen.
So can you see my second slide, which is the Sendai framework all of society approach?
On the first slide as well. No, we are on the first slide.
The screen is
frozen. We are still in the first slide.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, Gada, we can hear you. If you can share the screen again, because I think it was frozen.
Okay. So, do you see the screen?
Not yet for me.
Okay.
Not yet for us.
Okay. Now?
No.
No.
Okay. I don't know, because I see the screen and it's shared from my side, so.
Maybe you can come out of the shared screen and reshare it again. Just let's try.
Yeah, I'm doing so. Now, can you see it?
Yes. Yes. Now it's perfect.
Okay. Oh, sorry for that. So this is the second slide. Okay. I'm just giving you an idea about this figure, which is depicts how Sendai is embedded in the major global agendas. The major agendas provide for a shared global vision towards sustainable development for all. And it's fundamental to see coherence between its elements to avoid the duplication of efforts and maximize the results. Coherence between the agendas is more than a motto. It is a necessity to address the major global challenges, both present and future. The all of society approach has a benefit, complementarities between governments and stakeholders for a collective result. Identifying and aligning key priorities for coherent implementation of disaster risk reduction, climate change adaptation, and sustainable development. Providing an overview of capacities, roles, and initiatives to enhance understanding and collaboration and reduce duplication of efforts and resources among different actors. Bridging the science policy practitioners divide, enabling behavior change to take place at local and community levels. Having this in mind, the spirit of the Arab Partnership Meeting for DRR is to take the stock of knowledge by governments, stakeholders, and partners on the implementation of the Sendai framework for DRR in the region. All of the discussions and everything that is done at different levels help to inform discussions at higher levels that at the same time help to guide the global agendas and share information on best practices and challenges around the world. It is fundamental to keep these mechanisms active and thriving. The voluntary action commitments constitute the voluntary work plan of the different stakeholder groups to support the implementation of the Sendai framework for DRR. The majority, but not all major groups in the Arab states region developed and presented their voluntary action commitments during the Africa-Arab Regional Platform on DRR held in 2018. During the second day of the fifth Arab Partnership meeting, the major stakeholder groups for DRR presented an update on their voluntary action commitments. For the Arab states region, and with the support from UNDRR ROAS, a total of 6 regional major stakeholder groups have been formed. The Arab Science and Technology Advisory Group, the Arab Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Group, Arab Red Cross and Red Crescent National Societies Group, Arab Disaster Risk Reduction Children and Youth Group, the Arab Disaster Risk Reduction Civil Society Group, and now all of the 6 groups have an established structure and terms of reference. In addition, 5 of them have already developed their voluntary action commitments with developed activities. One of the newest group is the major stakeholder group, which is in the process of developing the voluntary action commitments as well. In addition to the UAE National Arise Network, which we have learned about earlier, and I would like to congratulate them on the great work and achievements. The voluntary action commitments by the various stakeholder groups have both short-term and long-term goals. Since the establishment of the initial groups in 2018, the groups have been working to implement these action commitments. These are already, there are already concrete achievements from the stakeholder actions, such as the support of the regional assessment publication developed by UNDRR ROAS. Just to mention a few achievements by the major stakeholder groups. First, the Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Group has developed a repository of technical resources on demand where publications, tools, resource persons, and experts and others can be found. In addition to their contribution to the RAR, the group has also contributed to the UNDRR publication entitled Gender and Disaster Risk Reduction, Good Practices and Lessons Learned. As for the Science and Technology Group, it has launched a questionnaire on the status of science and technology in DRR for the Arab region and an upcoming policy brief on COVID-19. They have also participated in global effort to redefine UNDRR ISC Sendai Hazard Definition and Classification Review. As for the Arab Civil Society Major Group, it has facilitated the organization of 10 very successful national coordination meetings in Egypt Jordan, Iraq, Kuwait, Lebanon, Mauritania, Morocco, Sudan, Tunisia, and Yemen. The main objectives of those meetings were to initiate a long-term national collaboration among active NGOs working on DRR and climate change-related issues at the national level. At the national level as well, the group members have supported campaigns in response to COVID-19 pandemic. For example, in Egypt, the Arab Office for Youth and Environment has organized a wide social media campaign to raise the public awareness on the safe disposal of masks and gloves. The campaign was also widely disseminated through NGOs all over Egypt. As for the Red Crescent National Societies, it has rolled out IFRC roadmap to community resilience guide in at least 5 national societies in the region and scale up community resilience work. And of course, ARISE, we have learned their achievements. As for the children and youth group, it includes the group's representation and organization of events to advocate for disaster risk reduction considerations, such as the online webinar entitled Towards a Safer and More Resilient Rainy Season in Yemen in October 2020. Additionally, the different groups have participated in various events to raise public awareness and advocate for enhanced disaster risk preparedness. Regarding the voluntary action commitments, the different stakeholder groups presented each of them the updates on the implementation of their voluntary action commitments, and the majority of activities on these commitments were centered around 3 main areas. The first one was advocacy, to raise general awareness on the levels of vulnerability in the region, to enhance the vision that governments alone is not enough, and the desire to bring together academia, the private sector, and other groups. Also, to highlight to governments the need to address the needs of those marginalized and build an inclusive, resilient path. The second one was the training to enable and to create a more active citizenry in the region. And the third one was the data generation and closing research gaps. All various groups have worked in various areas of data generation and closing research gaps. They have done so by contributing to various regional publications, by producing case studies, and in helping to redefine natural hazard indicators. It is worth highlighting the role of the various stakeholders groups in the region and their contribution to the regional assessment report. The publication and work is richer now given their inputs and their participation. It was agreed that the voluntary action commitments will be reviewed to integrate the new reality caused by COVID-19 pandemic. It would also help to redraft new short-term commitments in preparation for the next regional platform in 2021. Concerning the challenges, COVID-19 was identified by all groups as a major hindrance on their work, but also it was highlighted how COVID-19 has more severely affected various marginalized groups in the region, including youth, elderly, women, migrants, and IDP, informal workers, informal dwellers, and disabled, among others. The second challenge was access to information, in particular in areas of conflict or fragile context, possesses a constraint to the development of their activities, and also the lack of digitalization of data in the region. The third challenge was the weak engagement with governmental authorities in several cases, and there is a need to advocate for a more inclusive mechanism for stakeholder groups to share their findings and work with the governments. A general issue for most of the groups was the lack of resources for their activities, which also translates into logistical issues. As for the way forward, the major outcomes of the discussion included to enhance the levels of communication among the stakeholder groups in the Arab state in order to profit from the events and the activities that each group is organizing and attending. The second one was to channelize the Arab stakeholder groups in social media network of DRR ROAS to increase visibility and expansion of membership, to strengthen multi-sectoral and cross-fertilization of different activities of stakeholders, to reach out other stakeholders to engage youth in multi-stakeholder collaboration, to review their voluntary action commitment as part of the preparation for the next regional platform, and to engage in the preparatory process of the next regional platform in 2021. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ghada. Thank you very much for your, again, a very concise and succinct presentation on the second day of the event. Now, before we move forward on to our next speaker, our director Ricardo has to move on to his next engagement. So I would like to now invite him again just to say a few words to all colleagues and say bye to everyone. Ricardo, over to you.
Thank you very much, Sujit, and thank you to all of you. It has been a great pleasure being able to take part in this fifth session of this important meeting. Also glad to see some good and old friends on the screen. And I want to thank you also for your nice comments and welcoming words. I think that the way in which the discussions are going are a testament to the way in which the DRR agenda is moving forward in the Arab States region. And for this, I want to congratulate you, and I also want to congratulate our colleagues in the regional office in Cairo for taking this forward. But of course, this could not be done without your engagement and support as representatives from the organizations and member states that are working on DRR in the region. Unfortunately, I have other commitments today, so I cannot stay until the end of this session. But I want to tell you that it has been a great honor and pleasure for me to be part of this meeting today. And I want to thank you again very much for your support and commitment. Wishing you a very good continuation of this meeting and conclusion in the few hours. And as many of you have said, please stay safe. We're going through difficult times. And of course, being safe and also showing solidarity is something that needs to prevail these days for us to succeed in going over this difficult period. So thank you very much and wishing you all well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ricardo. And really thanks for your time today to participate in this meeting and having these encouraging words to colleagues. Wish you good luck too. Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so colleagues, I think moving on from the stakeholder group presentation, I mean, I think something to really note is that there is definitely a very solid progress we saw from all stakeholder voluntary commitment statements, and of course the realization of still miles to go, which is essentially in renewing their commitment statement to really prepare for the next regional platform and the next couple of years on having concrete action through all this stakeholder engagement. So with that, let's move to the brief on the third day of our meeting, which was focused on the UN agencies and our partner agencies. So we have We have Myrna, who will present a brief on the UN day, the event which was focused mainly on UN. So over to you, Myrna.
Thank you very much, Sujit, and good morning to everyone. I'm pleased to be sharing my screen now to give an overview of UN efforts that were discussed in the dedicated session for UN and international organizations on Wednesday, 4th of November. I'll just, yes. So in the session on Wednesday, we had 11 agencies, UN agencies participating in the discussions, which were indeed very fruitful. We had the Food and Agriculture Organization, International Organization for Migration, the International Telecommunication Union, UNDP, UNESCO, ESQA, Habitat, OCHA, UN Women, and WFP, in addition, of course, to UNDRR colleagues. Some agencies were not able to make it. However, we continue to coordinate our work and ensure that information sharing among UN agencies flow on DRR efforts. So the efforts of the UN agencies at regional level are being coordinated under the following forums to ensure coherence building. We have the Arab Platform for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Arab Partnership Meetings for Disaster Risk Reduction, and also the Arab stakeholder groups for DRR, where there are also UN agencies joining efforts with DRR stakeholders to support implementation of the Arab strategy for DRR. Also at regional level, we have the UN issue-based coalitions, which are thematic groups formed under the regional coordination mechanism for UN, and which are basically groups, thematic groups that bring together UN agencies to work on specific themes towards achieving sustainable development goals. And that also comprises climate change and DRR considerations. So the DRR efforts are being coordinated under the issue-based coalition on urbanization and the issue-based coalition on food security, climate action, and environment. Also, we had indicated the statement of intent that was signed globally between UNDRR and UNDP, and based on that, a joint regional work plan in the Arab region has been established, and work is ongoing in support of governments to implement the Sendai framework. There's also a recent agreement signed between UNDRR and UNFCCC on climate change action. During the meeting, we were able to map key regional joint initiatives between UN agencies on DRR. UN agencies, they work on developing research and knowledge products on DRR and resilience, with the aim to provide evidence base for decision and policy making, including three key efforts, one of which was the first regional assessment report on disaster risk reduction, which is scheduled to be launched in 2021, joining efforts of not only the regional UN agencies, but also other Arab regional organizations and experts. Also, the Arab Sustainable Development reports, which are also the result of efforts by UN and non-UN organizations and experts. There's also the ongoing work on Atlas, on the Arab Atlas on natural hazards, which also joins the work of UN, non-UN, and governments in the region. Another key area is working towards ensuring coherence between global agendas, between the DRR, the SDGs, and climate change. One joint initiative is the SDG Climate Facility, which is a multi-partner initiative between UN and non-UN agencies and experts at regional level to support bottom-up local action under the SDG 13 and the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, while of course integrating disaster risk reduction. Also addressing, there's ongoing work on addressing synergies between climate change and disaster risk reduction agendas through the Arab Center for Climate Change Policies. There's also the Coherence Initiative launched globally and regionally in the least developed countries, focusing on strengthening coherent implementation between the three key agendas, with focus on governance and national strategies. In the discussions, the key areas of UN programs on DRR at the country level were mapped and summarized as follows, and that included supporting governments and the UN country teams. The areas of work comprised development of national and local DRR strategies, including integrating DRR in sectoral strategies, integrating DRR also in the conflict and humanitarian settings, which are actually key in this region, integrating also DRR in the national determined contributions, the NDCs, whether during their enhancement or development, integrating DRR and climate change considerations in the UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework, the framework of cooperation with the governments, upscaling and mainstreaming eco-DRR and nature-based solutions in development planning at national and local levels, also integrating the mobility dimension in DRR and resilience strategies. Other areas included developing a risk assessment framework in the Arab region with focus on water-related hazards and disasters and climate security, undertaking vulnerability assessments to climate and disaster risk, developing regional and sub-regional climate projections and monitoring disaster impacts using geospatial analysis tools and official statistics, developing DRR country profiles to support the DRR programming in the region, developing also emergency response preparedness plans for UN country teams based on risk analysis and monitoring of risks in the region. Apologies, and also developing policy and regulatory framework guidelines for the use of telecommunication and ICTs for DRR, including emergency telecommunication plans, ICT contingency plans, and also ICT in the multi-hazard early warning systems. Other key areas, there's a focus on building capacities of governments and practitioners on DRR and resilience at all levels, supporting establishment of multi-hazard early warning systems in countries, supporting governments in the COVID-19 response and recovery planning, supporting effective transboundary risk management regimes, especially related to water resource, the shared water resource management. Also implementing sustainable energy projects, enhancing climate resilience in the agriculture sector with a specific focus on supporting smallholder farmers, implementing climate risk finance projects to support affected populations. Other key areas, this is the final slide, supporting the urban recovery and reconstruction and implementing urban recovery framework in post-conflict urban settings. Also, UN agencies support to safety nets and social protection to protect the most vulnerable to disasters. Also building women's leadership in DRR and resilience to climate change, DRR and migration as linked agendas. This includes also working on research, policy dialogue and capacity building, and also joining efforts under the Arab Gender Equality and Women Empowerment Group for DRR. Based on all the discussions, the UN agencies commended the session and they stressed the importance of this platform, expressed interest to continue to convene this UN forum to enable continued information sharing and enable the identification of common areas for potential joint implementation of DRR initiatives in support of governments and DRR stakeholders. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, ميرنا. شكرا لزميلتي ميرنا على عرض نتائج اليوم اجتماع اليوم الثالث من اجتماعات الشراكة العربية الخامس من الحد مخاطر الكوارث. سنأخذ استراحة لمدة 15 دقيقة ونعود لاستكمال أعمال جلسة اليوم من اجتماع الشراكة العربية. سنعود على الساعة 1:15 إن شاء الله بتوقيت القاهرة. شكرا.
Okay, colleagues, welcome back. I think everybody is back from the break. Maybe we start again the next session. Sorry for the little disappearance. I had something urgent to sort out. So now we, yeah, I see some people. So let's begin. So we heard 3 presentations from the reporting on the 3 days. I would like to now briefly open the floor for any comments or any questions to the presenter on the 3 days of the summary, and then we will move on to the discussion of the 5th regional platform. So any questions, colleague? Any comments you would like to add on to it? You can raise your hand through the raise hand function. Okay, I don't see any hands. Maybe is anyone willing to take the floor? Yes, Mr. Belhaz. I see your hand on the screen.
Mr. Sujit.
Yes, please go ahead, Mr. Belhaz.
السلام عليكم للجميع، يعني الأخ سجيت والمجموعة المرفقة له، السيد فادي والسيدة ميرنا وكل مجموعة والزملاء في كل الدول العربية وفي المنظمات العربية والدولية. أقترح فقط يعني اقتراح لي أن احنا نعرف أن الكوارث عندها 3 مراحل. المرحلة الأولى هي قبل الكارثة، المرحلة الثانية أثناء الكارثة، والمرحلة الثالثة بعد الكارثة. المرحلة الأولى نعمل عليها كثيرا ولا سيما في المركز العربي للوقاية من خطر الزلازل والكوارث الطبيعية الأخرى، هي المرحلة التي تسمى بالمرحلة الوقاية. في كل لاحظنا أن في كل المداخلات نتكلم فقط للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. هذا شيء جميل، يعني الحد من مخاطر الكوارث، لكن لما حتى نوصل للحد لازم يكون عندنا برنامج وقائي على كل الكوارث، سواء كانت كوارث طبيعية أو بيولوجية أو أي كارثة. فلذلك هذه مرحلة الوقاية مهمة بالنسبة لنا جدا، وأتمنى أن تدرج في كل أعمالنا، وشكرا.
Thank you, Mr. Belhaz. It's really a very important point. I think we all heard about Sendai framework, really focusing on prevention of new risks as well as reducing existing risks. I think this is a very pertinent and important point to remember, that not only we should work on reducing risk, which is the existing risk, but our efforts should always be targeted to really preventing new risks from being formulated. So yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree with your point. Any other colleague would like to take the floor? Do we have any raised hand? I see from the attendees. Rania.
When do you raise your hand?
Okay, I see Mr. Hassam and Ms. Abir.
Hello? Hello, did you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I am Rania Badr from English. I'm working in Ministry of Environment, and I am also a roster of experts in UNFCCC. So I would like to appreciate the steps that you're taking to have a protocol with the UNFCCC. I think it's a good step to unify the effort to facing climate change at the same time and reduce the disaster risk. So if it's possible, can I have more details about the protocol between the UN DRR and UNFCCC. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Rania. I think we have UNDRR and UNFCCC has an agreement, which more details you can find from our colleagues, and we'll be happy to share with you very soon. With that, maybe can we move to Mr. Hissam and then followed by Mr. Rawan.
Thank you so much for giving the floor. This is Hisham Ghani, the regional representative of the WMO for the Arab region. Thank you very much for inviting me for the meeting today. I'm sorry I was not able to join you early in the last few days, but it was a good opportunity for me to join you today, and the discussion has been taking place over the last few days. Of course, I hope in the future we will be able to attend your meeting and to be more active and cooperate with you, especially on the area of the multi-hazard early warning system, which is WMO is really keen to, and they actually helping and supporting number of the many countries in the Arab region as well as globally. I just wanted to take this opportunity to really appreciate the work has been done and the discussion has been taking place over the last few days, and hopefully in the future we will be able to be with you from the first day, so we can really join the effort together to work on the very critical area DRR, which is important for all the world and it must be taken in all the planning in the world. Thank you so much, and coming back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Hissam, and thanks for your interest. I think colleagues will include you in our invitees list for our next meeting, and we'll be very happy to have you in our meeting. Thank you. So now I move to Mr. Rawan.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon, I must say. I just want to stress on what the colleague said on the reopening of this session about the preparedness, about the prevention. Usually when we do a strategy, it contains a preparedness which starts from prevention, monitoring, notification, etc. All these in order to reach a place where we will try our best not to have the disaster. And this is the first step in the preparedness plan. It's prevention, awareness, etc. And then we go back and continue to, if we have start with the method should be implemented and that are part of the strategy, which are the control, and then the recovery, etc. But prevention is the first step in the preparedness. It should be done by each country to prevent having this outbreak and whatsoever they can do, or to prevent the disastrous impact of this outbreak. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rawan. Again, I think very pertinent point, and really, reiterating what Mr. Belhaz was saying, and we all feel the same. I think prevention is really key to be in our efforts. So with that, let's move on to our next session, which is on introducing you with the 5th Arab Regional Platform conference. As most of you know about the Arab Regional Platform, it has been in all the regions. In this region, we had it with all of you together in 2018, in October 2018 in Tunis. We are now starting to prepare for the next regional platform, which is the 5th Arab Regional Platform. And let me invite Fadi to give you a brief about the plan, and then we will open the floor again for a discussion on how to move forward. Fadi, over to you.
Thank you, Sujit. Let me start by in Arabic, please. شكرا زميلي سجيت على إعطائي مجال للعرض عن المنتدى الإقليمي أو التحضيرات للمنتدى الإقليمي العربي الخامس للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. مثل ما حنبتدي قبل ما نبتدي حنبتدي بالتطرق إلى خلفية عن المنتديات الإقليمية وسأتطرق إلى إبداء أو إعطاء نبذة عن المنتديات الإقليمية ودورها. فهي منتديات تضم أصحاب المصلحة المتعددين وتعكس التزام الحكومات بتحسين التنسيق وتنفيذ أنشطة الحد من مخاطر الكوارث مع الربط بالجهود الدولية والوطنية، وهي معترف بها من قبل الجمعية العامة للأمم المتحدة وإطار سنداي. بدأت خلال فترة إطار عمل هيودو واستمرت خلال إطار سنداي، وهي فرصة لمعالجة القضايا العابرة للحدود حول الوقاية من الكوارث والتأهب لها، وتوفير القيادة والتوجيه واقتراح حلول لمعالجة مخاطر الكوارث. كما يشير إطار سنداي بأن المنتديات الإقليمية هي آليات لتحقيق الاتساق بين جداول الأعمال والرصد والاستعراضات الدورية. في المنتديات الإقليمية في المنطقة العربية نلاحظ في هذه الشريحة المنتديات الإقليمية التي تم عقدها خلال الفترة السابقة في المنطقة العربية، حيث يعقد كل 3 سنوات ويتم تنظيمه بالتعاون والتنسيق مع جامعة الدول العربية وباستضافة إحدى الدول العربية. ويتضمن عادة جلسة وزارية، وهي فرصة فريدة للوزراء المسؤولين عن إدارة مخاطر الكوارث وأصحاب المصلحة من المنطقة العربية لإعادة تأكيد الالتزام بخفض الخسائر الناجمة عن الكوارث من خلال تنفيذ إطار عمل هيودو، وطبعا الآن إطار سنداي، كما يعتبر بمثابة منتدى لتبادل الخبرات بشأن الممارسات الناجحة للحد مخاطر الكوارث والنهج المبتكرة. المنتديات التي عقدت في خلال مرحلة إطار عمل هيودو هو المنتدى هو المنتدى العربي الأول
ou le premier forum arabe pour réduire les risques de catastrophe.
عفوا، نستطيع سماع الترجمة باللغة الفرنسية في الجلسة العامة.
Vous pouvez avoir la traduction en langue française dans leur...
أيوة، أوكي. المنتدى العربي الأول للحد من مخاطر الكوارث.
Le premier forum arabe pour réduire les risques de catastrophe.
عم نسمع الترجمة بالفرنسي فادي.
اي والله زميلتي رانيا لو سمحتي بتشوفي موضوع الترجمة.
I'm on it.
اوكي. فينا نكمل ولا؟
سامعينك احنا.
اوكي.
Go ahead. The French language not to translate, please. I assign.
اوكي. برجع بعود. المنتدى العربي الأول للحد مخاطر الكوارث عقد في العقبة عام 2013، وكان يركز على دور الحكومات المحلية في تنفيذ إطار عمل هيودو، ونتج عنه إعلان العقبة للحد مخاطر الكوارث في المدن العربية. وكذلك خلال إطار عمل هيودو كان هناك أو عقد المنتدى العربي الثاني الإقليمي العربي الثاني للحد مخاطر الكوارث في شرم الشيخ عام 2014، كان يركز على مشاورات المنطقة العربية وتوصيات المنطقة حول إطار سنداي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، ونتج عنه طبعا إعلان شرم الشيخ للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. وخلال المرحلة من إطار سنداي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث عقد المنتدى العربي الثالث للحد من مخاطر الكوارث في الدوحة عام 2017، وكان يركز على تحديث الاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث 2030، ونتج عنه إعلان الدوحة للمنتدى العالمي الخامس للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. طبعا يليه المنتدى العربي الرابع للحد من مخاطر الكوارث الذي عقد في تونس بالتزامن مع المنتدى الإقليمي الأفريقي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث في تونس عام 2018. كان يركز على إعداد خطة عمل ذات الأولوية 2018-2020 للاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، وكذلك تم تقديم 5 مجموعات تقديم 5 بيانات عمل طوعية من مجموعات أصحاب المصلحة المعنية لدى المنطقة العربية. ونتج عنه إعلان تونس للحد من مخاطر الكوارث وبيان الرئيس حول التعاون العربي الإفريقي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. ونحن بصدد الآن التحضير للمنتدى العربي الخامس للحد من مخاطر الكوارث العام القادم 2021. المنتدى الإقليمي العربي الخامس للحد مخاطر الكوارث، طبعا المنظمين المشاركين لهالمنتدى هي جامعة الدول العربية ومكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد مخاطر الكوارث، طبعا باستضافة كريمة من إحدى الدول العربية. الموضوع طبعا سيحدد لاحقا، والتاريخ المتوقع من المنتدى أو عقد هالمنتدى هو الربع الرابع من عام 2021 بسبب الظروف التي نمر بها أو يمر بها العالم، هي كوفيد أو كورونا كوفيد 19. طبعا المعنيين أو للمشاركة في هذا المنتدى هي الحكومات طبعا الوطنية والمحلية ومنظمات المجتمع المدني، منظمات وهيئات الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الدولية، المؤسسات المالية الدولية، المؤسسات الإعلامية، منظمات القطاع الخاص، المعاهد الأكاديمية والبحثية، وطبعا أصحاب المصلحة المعنيين بالحد من مخاطر الكوارث. الأهداف الخاصة بالمنتدى الإقليمي العربي الخامس للحد من مخاطر الكوارث طبعا بيركز على 4 أهداف، عفوا 3 أهداف. الهدف الأول تقييم التقدم المحرز في تنفيذ إطار سنداي وإعادة تأكيد الالتزام السياسي. 2 تحديد الإجراءات ذات الأولوية للسنوات القادمة لتسريع التنفيذ الإقليمي ورصد إطار سنداي. و3 توفير فرص لتبادل المعرفة والخبرات والممارسات الفضلة في تعزيز الحد من مخاطر الكوارث في سياق إطار سنداي. طبعا النتائج المتوقعة من هذا المنتدى الإقليمي هو أولا إعلان سياسي من شأنه تدعيم الالتزام السياسي للحكومات بالوقاية والحد من المخاطر أو مخاطر الكوارث، وتعزيز القدرة على الصمود عبر الإسراع بتنفيذ إطار سنداي ورصده في المنطقة العربية. ثانيا بيانات العمل الطوعية لمجموعات أصحاب المصلحة بشأن تنفيذ إطار سنداي، مراجعته وإصدار بيانات جديدة. وثالثا طبعا خطة العمل ذات الأولوية للاستراتيجية العربية للحد مخاطر الكوارث للأعوام 2021-2024 لتسريع وتيرة تنفيذ إطار سنداي في المنطقة العربية. طبعا هون أنا آخر سلايد عنا اللي هي بتركز أو آخر شريحة بتحكي على الهيكل المقترح للمنتدى العربي الخامس للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. طبعا مثل ما أننا شايفين سينقسم إلى قسمين. الأول هي مشاورات افتراضية لمدة 6 أشهر من ابتداء من مارس 2021 ولغاية سبتمبر 2021. وستضم هذه المشاورات الافتراضية عدة مشاورات، وهي أولا مشاورات حول الأفكار الرئيسية ومواضيع الرئيسية للمنتدى، مشاورات حول خطة العمل ذات الأولوية 2021-2024 لتنفيذ الاستراتيجية العربية لحد مخاطر الكوارث، 3 مشاورات للإعداد أو لإعداد بيانات العمل الطوعية لمجموعات أصحاب المصلحة، 4 مشاورات حول صياغة الإعلان السياسي والانتهاء منه، وخامسا مشاورات حول بعض القضايا الموضوعية كمثلا التنفيذ الوطني والمحلي مع نهج الترابط فيما بين الحد مخاطر الكوارث والتنمية المستدامة وخطط التغير المناخي. المجال الثاني ممكن حول موضوع منع نشوء مخاطر جديدة، والمجال الثالث تمويل الحد من مخاطر الكوارث. أما القسم الثاني من المشاورات أو من هيكل المنتدى عفوا، فهو عقد يومان في موقع انعقاد المنتدى. طبعا اليوم الأول هو اجتماعات تحضيرية واجتماعات ما قبل المؤتمر، واليوم الثاني هي الاجتماع أو هو الاجتماع الوزاري، والذي يتضمن أربع توصيات، وهي أولا أو 4 نتائج، وهي أولا البيانات الوزارية أو بيانات الدول حول تنفيذ إطار سنداي وتنفيذ الاستراتيجية العربية. 2 عرض خطة العمل ذات الأولوية لتنفيذ الاستراتيجية العربية للأعوام 2021-2024، والتي سيتم إعدادها مسبقا وطبعا التصديق عليها خلال المنتدى خلال اليوم الثاني من المنتدى. وعرض طبعا 3 عرض بيانات العمل الطوعية لمجموعات أصحاب المصلحة، ورابعا وأخيرا تقديم واعتماد الإعلان السياسي من قبل الوزراء خلال المنتدى وخلال اليوم الأخير. وشكرا لحسن السياق.
Thank you, Fadi, for the presentation. I think this is something we would perhaps everybody would like to have some discussion. As you can see, this time, unfortunately, it's not going to be business as usual for the regional platforms. We have to really substantially reduce the footprint of participants in the regional platform. So as Fadi presented, maybe Fadi, you can keep the last slide so that we can, when we invite for comments or any discussion, we can still have that fresh in their mind. So as you can see that we do need to reduce the footprint, and we do need to reduce the number of days as well. So in order to have some really substantive discussion, substantive consultation, we are opening it for almost 6 months to organize number of virtual meetings and do all the consultation in preparation of to reach the outcome of the regional platform, so that we can at least we can progress in our plan. In terms of the structure, as Fadi presented, it will be 2 days. 1 day will be preparatory and stakeholder meetings and all preparatory meetings. And the second day will be a ministerial segment that will allow finalization of all the outcome documents from the regional platform. Now, I think what is really essential here to take note is that the 6-month period for the consultation. This is where I think we have to really come together and see how we can progress together in Sendai framework implementation. And we will have to also discuss where we should focus in the region post 2020. 2020 will have this, there's a milestone of having a critical number of countries with national and local strategies, which means that we have to start really focusing on the implementation of those strategies, both at national and local level. And hence, we really need to consult and discuss together that where are the focus areas that you all see to be pursued. And that will inform the prioritized action plan. So we will certainly start all these consultations with all of you through the Arab Partnership, meetings, and we'll have a number of those virtual meetings in the 6 months, so that we can come up with the prioritized action plan as well as the voluntary commitment statement and the declaration, which can be then shared in the final day. So now I would like to open the floor for your suggestions and comments. I mean, you may please focus on 2 aspects. One on the structure, which not much I think can be done. We have to really see that it's not a big gathering. But more importantly, I think we would really want your comments and suggestions on what are the topics or what are the areas we should really focus post 2020. And 2021, we should see something very concrete as a work plan. So let me open the floor now. If anyone would like to take the floor, you can kindly raise your hand. I'm watching the participant list here.
That's me, Mohammed.
Yes, Mr. Mohammed, please go ahead.
Yes. شكرا كثير على أيام المؤتمر من يوم 2 الشهر حتى الختام اليوم، وعلى تقارير الأيام التخصصية التي لم نحضرها. أنا بعتقد بهذا الجهد الكبير عنا عام 2021 عام عمل مكثف، وخاصة باقتراح العمل لمدة 6 أشهر متتالية من آذار حتى سبتمبر 2021، وأهمية التركيز على العمل لمدة 6 أشهر لا سمح الله لو استمرت جائحة كورونا كوفيد-19 لفترة أطول من اللازم، بتكون العمل المكثف لمدة 6 أشهر كفيل بالوصول إلى نتائج إذا ما اضطرينا أن نعقده على الويبينار أو أونلاين. في مجالات التركيز حابب أأكد على الترابط بين الحد من مخاطر الكوارث والتنمية المستدامة وخطط التغير المناخي، ربطها بالمخاطر البيولوجية وخاصة بالدروس المستفادة من كوفيد-19. ثبت بكل التجارب المحلية على أنه الكوهيرنس اللازم بين ال DRM والكلايمت تشينج والأس دي جيز ارتبط بشكل وثيق أكثر في فترة كوفيد-19. في التنمية المستدامة وضح أنه حد الفقر ازداد والبطالة ازدادت وفرص العمل قلت، وفي التغير المناخي كل العاملين في مجال البيئة كان عندهم في الويست والسوليد ويست، عنده كان مشكلة في المخلفات، الطبية أو الاعتيادية في فترات الإغلاق. والحد من المخاطر هو الرابط ما بين العناصر الثلاث. فأنا يعني بقترح وأؤكد على نقطة التركيز على أنه المخاطر البيولوجية اللي قد يكون عنوانها القائم اليوم كوفيد-19 هي حافز ودرس مستفاد حتى نقوم بالربط ويكون مفهومنا للكوهيرنس جدي ودائم خلال ال6 أشهر القادمة، حتى نخرج بمقترحات أو درافت لخطط نستطيع في الربع الأخير من العام القادم في المنتدى العربي الخامس. شكرا.
Thank you, Mr. Ode. I think a very important and valid point you raised. Let me take a few more interventions, and then we come back to sort of consolidate what's coming out. Is there any other colleague would like to intervene? Don't see any raised hand. Maybe you can just come in. Okay, seems there is no further intervention. So let me then pose the question. I mean, is it something you think a feasible way forward, taking into account the situation we are in? Is it do you see the format of the RP is something you think will be okay? You agree with it, or you want to see something additional? So this is one question. I think we can again sort of seek some intervention. But just going back to Mr. Ode, it's really important that we also have a focus on the post-COVID DRR. I mean, it's not going to be the same as we all
بالطبع الوضع
know.
لن يكون كما هو، تعرفون ذلك.
The interpretation came, although it's off. Sorry for that. So I think the post-COVID-19
إذن برأيي المرحلة بعد جائحة كورونا.
Okay. Sorry, I have some problem here. The interpretation is, even if it is off, I can hear it.
Yeah, sorry, Sujit. Kindly the Arabic translation to stop till we fix this problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Rania. Thanks, Rania, to really trying to resolve it. Okay. So I think it's really important that we have this focus of post-COVID-19 risk reduction, because we are all seeing that the increasing poverty, increasing vulnerability is there. It's still unfolding. We still don't know where it's going to end. So there are a lot of uncertainties, and I think post-COVID will pose a number of challenges in itself. I think the business is not going to be as usual. That we have to really take it for granted now, and hence there is a need for really focusing on the post-COVID DRR issues, including the biological hazard, of course, looking at how pandemics affect the whole population, how vulnerability is increasing, and how do we then move forward in our action that really addresses those challenges. Nexus between DRR, CCA, SDG, I think again very important. It's already there as coherence of agendas. I think this is an area where we need to focus. I think I didn't hear any intervention from colleague on financing for DRR, which actually came up. I recall it was in our last partnership meeting discussion. It came prominently that we need to also focus on not just an implementation, capacity building, and sort of advocacy work, but we have to start looking at how investment in DRR can be grown, how the financing for DRR can be really have more concerted effort. So I think that also requires some sort of more attention in moving from 2020 onwards. So I think that these are some really key points. I see a hand.
Ms. Sirawan. So I'll now invite Ms. Sirawan to give her intervention.
Okay, I will. I just want to add one point that if we were going to work on COVID-19, it means that we're going to have a base for every biological hazard, almost. Because usually when we talk about preparedness plan, they have all the same basic points, but they differ in certain places. So if we worked on COVID, we would have a plan for recovery, for resilience, for control, etc. And we can apply it on other biological hazards with a little bit of difference here and there. We tailor it according to the virus or bacteria or the hazard, but mainly we're going to have a very good plan for almost all the biological hazards concerning, let's say, viruses, bacteria, etc. With respect to recovery plan, control, intervention of all the involved sectors, compensation, etc. All these are common. So it's going to be like a very good example or a very good
سيكون هذا خير مثال أو خطوة جيدة إلى الأمام.
Translation is back into...
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
كنا نحاول مرة أخرى. عذرا.
Okay, so this is what just I want to say, that it would be a very good idea to work on, to put COVID as one of the priorities in the coming 6 months. And if it was gone, hopefully, then we would have a very good whole idea of what we're gonna do during, after, and then before, when we're facing such a biological hazards that is new for us. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Sirawan. Absolutely. I think I fully agree with you that the focus on biological hazard should be there. But at the same time, I must say that it's not only that the complete focus of risk reduction should be on biological hazard, but of course, it's going to be very critical from now on, because it's not just addressing the post-COVID situation, but it's also sort of looking at this whole new dimension of other biological hazard elements. So it's absolutely critical for that work. But at the same time, we have to really take a very holistic view of risk now being ever more, complex, systemic, and again, the cascading impact is realized more than I think before. The interconnectedness of, again, I mean, the climate change impact, the new way of society functioning with all sort of, digital transformation and so on, it's definitely posing a different level of challenge in risk management. And that has to be not only, I think it's very well identified, very well acknowledged. It's now what we have to do is to really look at how we are addressing the issue of systemic risk. And that is something we have to sorry, I have a visitor.
I'm not a visitor.
Okay, so I think that's really a point well taken. So do we have any other colleagues like to intervene?
Yeah, and I want to add a small point only. And then in the next 6 months, maybe we will face a complex hazards. It means some countries, maybe they will face in the next 2 months a flood, for example, or another kind of risk or hazards. For that, how to work with a complex disaster during COVID-19. If there is 3 or 4 kinds of disasters, maybe facing some our Arab countries, how to deal with COVID-19 during a disaster or a hazard or in the opposite, how to make a management for the risk of any disaster during COVID-19 with the protocols, medical or health protocols of COVID-19. It will be, it will be a complex hazard, and it needs a special or a unique protocols how to manage that.
Thank you, Mr. Ode. I think, again, very important point. It's indeed, I think, when we talk about systemic risk or cascading impact, this is essentially, we're talking about the complexity of multiple hazards occurring at the same time. So this is perhaps, in addition to the COVID-19 situation, of course, countries are facing all kinds of other natural hazards and other man-made hazards. We need to have this focus of how then we manage the complexity or the complex hazard or dual hazard situation. And at the same time, I think a very pertinent subject for this region is all this humanitarian situation, conflict and civil unrest and so on. That makes even risk more complex. So you have COVID, you have humanitarian emergency, you have natural hazards, man-made hazards. So it's, again, I mean, it's the message is very clear that the way risk has been managed is no more going to be business as usual. It has to change, and it's really essential that we look at how it changes, how we then adapt to that complex emergency situation. So with that, let me see if there is any other intervention.
Sujit, if possible, I would like to make a comment.
Yes, Camilo, please go ahead.
Thank you all.
I'm not seeing any hands, so I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
I can't take any.
No, not a problem. Thank you all colleagues and all participants for being here today. In line with what Sujit has mentioned about the evolving and more systemic nature of risk, I want to make a call to all of you, like in the preparation for the next regional platform. The same composition of this forum has changed. We have a new group, like as you have been seeing today, the Arise Network in the UAE. And it's a call also for the work that all stakeholders have been doing up to now. It is a call to evaluate how we can work together with the tools that are already accessible today. And in the view of how we're working from a COVID perspective and a post-COVID perspective, what new risk we can analyze and capture and mitigate today. So the call is for all members to also have a look at the work that's going to be developed over the next coming months. If we put a focus for a moment also in the private sector, the work that's going to be developed in the UAE, how can this be replicated in other areas of the region where we can have an impact potentially, in particular in certain areas that we're not able to mitigate risk up to now. Thank you, and over to you, Sujit.
Thank you, Camilo, for that intervention. So do we have any more colleagues? Okay, no, I don't see any hand, or I don't see any other intervention. So I think before I hand it over to our colleagues from Egyptian government to give the closing remark, let me just reiterate a few points, which I think most of you have already sort of shared, and as a way forward from here, we will certainly have another Arab Partnership meeting in another maybe 6 months, and we will communicate with you on the schedule of the virtual consultations in preparation of the regional platform. We will have the report on the meeting so that you can still have an opportunity to provide more comments, more input to it. We will still need to do more discussion on the preparation of the regional platform. Certainly, it's just an introduction. I must say that we need more focused discussion on the way forward. And I think just reflecting on what we really heard in the last 5 days and then where we move forward, we definitely saw a lot of progress in both stakeholders, both governments' effort. Despite the situation of COVID-19 from almost from March this year, we are seeing a lot of momentum, a lot of work being done. But at the same time, I think you all realize, and we all realize, that we still have a long way to go. We have certainly a very good number of countries having their national strategies, but I think we are all agree that we are still weak on the local strategies, not only formulation of local strategies, but also implementation of it. And this is where I think we need to really focus, even if the 2020 marks the target for the target E, we still continue our effort. You still continue your effort in progressing in the national and local strategies, because national and local strategies is not a one-off job that you finish the strategy and that's the end of it. That's actually the beginning of it. That's the beginning of implementation of risk reduction in a more sort of coherent and more structured manner in any country. And that also is the same at the local level. So the takeaway, I think, from here is that, of course, we have progressed well, but we have to still keep the goal high, keep the bar high in terms of not only looking at national strategies, those who are not adopted or not endorsed yet, to work further on getting it done, but at the same time focusing on the implementation of those strategies in an effective manner. And that will require, actually, which a number of colleagues, I think, said about a solid coordination mechanism. The national platform, somewhere it is called National Coordination Mechanism, national committees, national, I mean, different kinds of names are there, but national platform, as most of us know, this is where we have to still, put a lot more effort in bringing institutions together. And now, as we move forward on tackling the number of other dimensions of risk, the systemic nature of risk, the biological hazards, the man-made hazards, and at the same time looking at the climate change impact, how do we really coherently implement risk reduction with the SDGs? These all requires a very strong arrangement at the national level that allows disaster risk management institutions to really make a difference in that collaboration and coordination. And that is essentially the coordination mechanism's role at the national level. And so we still need to have a little more, I think, focus on strengthening these sort of national coordination mechanism that will allow more effective implementation on the ground. As we move forward from 2020, I think, again, it is very critical that we have a focus at the local level. Local level implementation, whether it's through the cities program or through any other program, but at the end, we really need to focus, everybody really need to look at that whatever we are saying in a strategy or a policy, that is translated into action at the local level. If it is not, then we fail. So I think there is that need for local level attention on implementation of our actions post 2020 will be very critical. So the MCR 2030 program is just one of the program which will allow cities to really prepare in a very structured manner with a lot of capacity and peer learning and so on. But at the same time, I think there has to be a focus at the rural level, at every level. Focus on prevention. I think we heard again and again in new dimensions of hazards, biological hazards, man-made hazards. This need to all brought together into our purview. The coherence of agendas, again, I think it should not remain at the global and regional level discussion. The coherence of agendas should be really reflected at the local level or national level implementation. This is again key, that how we together move forward to create that sort of environment that allows this this reflection to really materialize at the local and national level. I think as we move forward, not only just in preparation of the regional platform, but post 2020, I think for the next 10 years, we have to have a focus of the stakeholder group engagement even much more stronger. So we move from these commitments which was made until 2020, the action plan, we engage further into developing a set of renewed action plan with the stakeholders. That will again, I think, allow again much more strong implementation with a all of society approach. I think we have been talking about this all of society approach. This is the way I think we can materialize it. So we have to engage further, even more strongly with the stakeholder groups engagement. And as my colleagues were, making the call, I think there is really a need for joining hand and making it, much more stronger in the coming years. I think again, I mean, the UN partnership, we had a whole day of discussion with the UN colleagues. They bring in a lot of value to all our work in disaster risk reduction. We witnessed that most of the organizations within the UN, they work jointly. They have a number of joint programs, joint initiatives. And of course, there is a potential to work further or continue the work of this joint plan, joint work with all agencies. That again, at the end, I think we all aim to serve the countries or support the countries in making risk reduction a reality. So with that, colleagues, I think, I mean, if I have missed something, of course, it will appear in the report. But I mean, I also invite other colleagues if they want to make any intervention, as we are sort of at the close of the 5th day, wrapping it up, in terms of where do we move forward. Of course, as Fadi already mentioned, that we will start all this consultation process, the preparation of regional platform. That will again bring us all together to think, together and act together. So with that, I think I would really like to, well, I would now like to invite our colleagues from Government of Egypt, who will provide the closing remarks. So Major General Mr. Mohammed Abdul Maqsood, the floor is yours for the closing remarks.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحقيقة طبعا أنا بيطيب لي أن أتقدم بالشكر لمكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث على تنظيمه لهذه الندوة وهذا المؤتمر اللي بيشكل بالنسبة لنا أهمية خاصة في المنطقة العربية. سعادة الدكتور ريكاردو مينا مدير مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، الدكتور جمال جاب الله مدير إدارة الإسكان والموارد المائية والحد من مخاطر الكوارث في جامعة الدول العربية، سيد السفيرة شهيرة طبعا كانت شرفانا، سيد سوجيت مهانتي رئيس مكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، السادة شركاء من مجموعات أصحاب المصلحة في الحد من مخاطر الكوارث، السادة زملاء الكرام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بيسعدني أن أتحدث إلى حضراتكم في ختام الاجتماع الخامس للشراكة العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، واللي تابعنا باهتمام مجرياته ومداولاته على مدار 5 أيام. وهنا الحقيقة أود أن أتقدم بالشكر لمكتب الأمم المتحدة وخاصة المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية في القاهرة على تنظيم هذا الاجتماع اللي جمع كل الجهات المشاركة والمتواجدة معنا اليوم وللمرة ال5 لتعزيز النهج المتكامل للانخراط في جهود الحد من مخاطر الكوارث في المنطقة العربية. المنطقة العربية الحقيقة بتشهد خلال المرحلة الحالية سلسلة من الأخطار المتعاقبة اللي أثرت ولا تزال تؤثر على كافة مناحي الحياة والقطاعات الحيوية الصحية والتعليمية والخدمية والإنتاجية والبيئية. إن أهمية هذا الاجتماع تنبع من قدرته على جمع الحكومات العربية ومجموعات أصحاب المصلحة ووكالات الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الدولية على طاولة النقاش للتباحث والتنسيق معا لتنفيذ إطار سنداي من خلال تنفيذ الاستراتيجية العربية للحد من مخاطر الكوارث 2030 وبرنامج عملها وخطط عملها ذات الأولوية
بالنظر إلى تزامن هذا الاجتماع مع نهاية المرحلة الأولى من الاستراتيجية العربية وخطة العمل ذات الأولوية 2018-2020. استعرض الاجتماع التقدم المحرز نحو تحقيقها استعدادا لتطوير خطة العمل ذات الأولوية القادمة على مدار السنوات الثلاث القادمة من 2021 إلى 2023. هي أبرزت نقاشات الشركاء خلال هذا الاجتماع العديد من أوجه التشابه بين الدول العربية من حيث طبيعة الأخطار المحيطة بها وطريقة مواجهتها والتخطيط للتعافي منها. ويمكن جائحة كوفيد-19 كان لها أثر كبير في إعادة تفكيرنا في النهج المتبع في إدارة مخاطر الكوارث من قبل الحكومات العربية. وفي هذا الإطار الحقيقة الدول العربية والحكومات العربية أوصت في وقت سابق من هذا العام بضرورة إعداد وثيقة إرشادية لدمج الأخطار البيولوجية في أعمال الحد من مخاطر الكوارث في المنطقة العربية. وهنا أود أن أتوجه بالشكر لجامعة الدول العربية ومكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، على سرعة الاستجابة لهذه التوصية من خلال مباشرة التنسيق والإعداد لذلك، وهو ما تم استعراضه في الجلسة الأولى لهذا الاجتماع والخاصة بالحكومات العربية. في ضوء التحديات اللي بتواجه الدول العربية والاستجابة لآثار كوفيد-19، شددت النقاشات على الحاجة أولا إلى تعزيز فهم مخاطر الكوارث المحيطة بنا من خلال دعم إجراء تقييمات شاملة لمخاطر الكوارث المتعددة نظرا لتعقيدها وأثرها على كل نواحي الحياة، وده حتى نتمكن من وضع خطط سليمة للاستعداد لها ومجابهتها والتعافي منها. برز خلال النقاشات الحاجة الملحة إلى تعزيز الالتزام السياسي في الدفع قدما بأجندة الحد من مخاطر الكوارث على المستوى الإقليمي والوطني والمحلي، باعتبار ده أولوية قصوى بالنسبة للدول العربية، فضلا عن الحاجة الملحة لإعادة النظر في التشريعات والقوانين ذات العلاقة وتعزيز الترتيبات المؤسسية. تم التشديد خلال الاجتماع على أهمية الإسراع في إنشاء وتأسيس المنتدى الوطني للحد من مخاطر الكوارث كآلية وطنية للتشاور والتنسيق بين كل الجهات الفاعلة الحكومية وغير الحكومية في مجالات الحد من مخاطر الكوارث، انطلاقا من مبدأ التشاركية في المسؤولية اللي دعا ليها إطار سنداي للحد من مخاطر الكوارث. النقاشات أكدت على أهمية تضافر الجهود نحو تعزيز التماسك والانسجام في العمل على تنفيذ الأجندات العالمية لضمان الوصول إلى تنمية مستدامة في المنطقة العربية، وده بيتطلب تعزيز جهود كل الجهات المسؤولة عن تنفيذ الأجندة العالمية والفاعلة فيها، وكذلك تعزيز التنسيق فيما بينها وعملها الجماعي على إعداد وتنفيذ الاستراتيجيات الوطنية، حيث تعكس هذه الاستراتيجيات التوجه الشمولي في رؤيتها وخطط عملها. وفي ختام الكلمة الحقيقة أود التأكيد على التزام حكومة جمهورية مصر العربية في الدفع قدما بجهود الحد من مخاطر الكوارث ومخاطر تغير المناخ على المستويات الإقليمية والوطنية والمحلية نحو تحقيق التنمية المستدامة في مصر والوطن العربي. وهنا الحقيقة أود أن أؤكد على دورنا واهتمامنا بتعزيز الاستقرار وأيضا الحد من مخاطر الكوارث وبصفة خاصة المخاطر البيولوجية. مصر حريصة على التعاون مع الدول العربية في مواجهة مثل هذه المخاطر. كما نطمح لمزيد من التنسيق والتعاون مع كل الشركاء المتواجدين معنا اليوم لتحقيق هذه الغاية، وأتقدم بالشكر لجامعة الدول العربية على جهودها، كما أتوجه بخالص الشكر مرة أخرى لمكتب الأمم المتحدة للحد من مخاطر الكوارث، المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية، على جهوده المستمرة والتزامه بدعم الدول العربية في تحقيق غايات إطار سنداي، وعلى تنظيمه لهذا الاجتماع الهام اللي ضم كل الشركاء من الجهات الفاعلة في الحد من مخاطر الكوارث. نأمل إن شاء الله أن يكون لنا لقاء قريب وجها إلى وجه بمشاركة وبتواجد مجتمعي كامل في القريب العاجل إن شاء الله بعد ما نتجاوز أزمة كوفيد-19. بكرر شكري لحضراتكم لحسن الاستماع، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Major General Abdul Maqsood, for your.
You are most welcome, Sam.
Thank you. And also thank you for the government of Egypt's continued support to all of us. Let me also take the opportunity of thanking the League of Arab States, I think Ambassador Zahira Wahabi, and all the Sendai focal point, the colleagues from government. It's really been a pleasure working with you, and it's really, I'm thankful for your commitment. All the stakeholder groups, of course, I think some of them are present with their representative, but again, the whole extended network of the stakeholder group, without their work, I think it's we won't be successful. So again, thank you so much for that. Thank our UN colleagues, our partner agencies, and their colleagues who are working with us on a number of issues with you on disaster risk reduction. Thanks for your participation, and we would like to definitely continue this journey with you. And of course, I really like to thank my colleagues in the regional office, my dear colleagues who are put so much effort in making all this, really happen. I mean, the level of preparation for this meeting, not only for this meeting, I think the amount of work has been done. It's really commendable. I definitely, I mean, I'm proud of being part of this team. And last but not the least, the colleagues from ESQUAD, our interpreters, really thank you very much for all your support, all the interpretation you provided, which was really excellent. I mean, again, without you, it's very difficult to really, conduct a meeting, whether virtually or in person. So again, thank you very much. So I look forward to see you again next time. So until that, stay safe, take care, and bye-bye. And see you next time, whenever we have a next partnership meeting. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. See you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sujit.
Thank you, Major General. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sujit. Thank you, Mirna. Thank you, Fadi.
أهلا وسهلا. Thank you.
تحياتنا للكل.
تحياتنا للجميع. شكرا سوجيت، شكرا فادي، شكرا كل الإخوة العاملين على نجاح هذا المنتدى، وشكرا السفيرة شهيرة، وشكرا لكل أصحاب المصلحة.
Thank you, Dr. Adil. Thank you so much.